Thank you so much for joining me. I am so grateful that we could finally do this. I stand in awe of the work you're doing. And the fact that, I mean, you're such a soldier. I saw your speech in Kelly J. Keene's documentary when she toured the US, and it was so empowering. And I see you warring on Twitter all the time. And I just, and what you told me you're doing, which I do want to get into about the program you're setting up. And is it just California right now?
Right now, but I don't think it's going to be just California very
Yeah,
long,
really?
like at all. Like there's already, I think, Massachusetts, Washington, Texas, at least to begin with. That's they want in, they want chapters, they want to get active. So
Well, please let me know if there's anything I can do to help because this is a thing that this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart because my mother spent time in federal prison, my sister spent time in state prison. So uh, the idea of them being, they
mhm.
both were out before all the stuff started happening, but and I actually went home to see them a few weeks ago during my birthday, and I convinced them. It took all of 2 seconds to convince them to not vote Democrat for the first time in their life because I all they had to hear was that they're housing rapists in women's prison.
And that's
So
what it takes. I think that's what um is the most impactful thing is when you are able to either you are impacted by the system and you've experienced it and you have had a loved one that could have been in this situation or they are because it's really hard I think for people to grasp it if there is no personal connection. Um not in all cases, but I think in a lot of situations it's just hard to imagine this and the level of depravity that we're talking about here is so unbelievable. It's so shocking. That's why I really try and hold back on releasing so much information because I know that it's just going to traumatize people and it's going to turn them off. They're going to shut down. Um,
yeah, I do find it's really difficult sometimes to have these conversations. Like, there's a woman I'm friends with who's a bleeding heart liberal, and I doesn't. I think she spends most of her time taking in the news from liberal news mainstream media, so she doesn't know stuff's going on. I was like, well, Democrats are housing rapists in women's prison, and just that she changed the subject almost immediately. I
it's
think that
their programs. They're
yeah,
programmed to do so. It's amazing how skillfully too, seamlessly that people can completely override what you just said and re-navigate a conversation. It's crazy.
yeah, like I'm not an environmentalist, which is an issue she cares about a great deal, but I I can't put the environment or what might be happening in the future with the environment above vulnerable people.
Mm-mm.
Like it's just demonic what's going on. I touched on it at the beginning, so just so I don't confuse people, I want to talk about the program you're developing. And I want to hear more about that. If you want to talk, but if you're able to, if it's still under wraps, we don't have to, but
Oh, well, no, no. We're working on somehow getting the reentry services that we provide as friends into a curriculum that can be incorporated into the actual prison system. Uh, Reentry has to start a long time before you parole, before you get that date, because there's so much preparation emotionally, spiritually, physically that needs to go into preparing women for being released into this planet that is definitely not the same one that they left. There's so much, it's a culture shock. So we want to work on getting people acclimated before they're even released because it's very traumatic when you come home and you've been gone for 10, 15, 20 years and you want to order a cup of coffee and you go to Starbucks and they don't have small, medium, or large. And the menu is incredibly overwhelming and it's embarrassing because you don't know how to order a cup of coffee and people behind you want you to hurry up and the anxiety is real. And I know that's how I felt when I came home and I just did 5 years. So the whole thing is to prevent anybody else from feeling that way because we can see it. We'll see it happening. Or when you hear an alarm a car alarm and you want to get down on the ground because you've been getting down on the ground every time you hear an alarm for the last 20 years, you're instinctively going to do it again. Um, there's things like people don't prepare you for traffic. Nobody is understanding that people go like 90 miles an hour on the freeway now. And 20 years
Yeah.
ago, going 65 was, really pushing it. This is, uh, people are, calling me and saying, I'm shaking. I just got out of the car. I just went from the transitional house to a meeting and I don't understand what's going on. I said, I'm sorry. I should have told you ahead of time that people don't really care about the rules of traffic or the laws of gravity or anything right now. So yeah, buckle up. Um, People aren't prepared to come home and sleep in the dark. You haven't been in the dark for decades. I know when I came home, I was alone and I couldn't handle it. You're in a room with I mean in CCWF, these are 8-man or 8-woman cells. So there's 8 women at all times. So you eat, you sleep, you shower, you use the toilet, you live with 7 partners. So coming home and being alone is pretty shocking. And just imagine doing decades and coming home and being alone. It's nobody's talking about this kind of stuff. So we want to get people used to these ideas. We're like, it's a lot of bad news. I mean, it seems like I'm just dropping bummer after bummer, but
That's why we're talking about this though. And honestly, I never would have considered this aspect of like something as simple as speed limits and venti versus large. Like that's a really good
yes,
point. And then you feel like I even have to
stupid.
watch myself sometimes because like the way I talk to some of my friends that have been like less fortunate than me, you like I know my sister for one, like there's insecurities that come with feeling shame about your
Mhm.
past and feeling like you're not smart enough and you're not this or that, and then like being inundated with things that you don't understand simply because you haven't been around them. It's demoralizing too. Like, and you don't want to
Mhm.
ask for help because you
No.
you don't want to ask because people treat you. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when people act like someone's stupid for asking a question. I think
Yes.
it really bothers me because it makes it's bad for us socially and culturally too, because then it makes people want to pretend as though they know the answer. It causes, it's all ego. And so yeah, I mean that's really important point that I never even would have thought of myself. So don't feel bad about feeling like
Being
we're
a
talking about, I mean, we're talking about, incarcerated women and the abuse they endure. So it's not going to be a happy go lucky
right. Well, and
session.
I mean, there's so much stuff, scams. Oh, tech literacy. Tech literacy is huge. If we could at least get a glossary in so people could be comfortable with tech terms, or not comfortable, but at least familiar before they get home. Because WYD, what is WYD? Well, what are you doing? Um, Nobody knows what that is because they don't know text talk. Tech literacy is I really would love to get them versed in how to use their phones before they get home. Uh, and then how to not put your email address and everything and get a lot of scams. Um, I think Tamika is calling. You
Oh,
want me to answer?
yes,
Okay, let me
Hi,
please.
my
um
name
Yeah.
is Teresa Johnson. My sister is Tomiekia Johnson. She's currently incarcerated at Central California Women Facility, and she currently has been there for 10 years. She's younger than I am by 5 years. She's my baby sister. We grew up with our parents in home. We had a great childhood. She played basketball. She was very smart. She still is smart. She's very, very smart. She was a 911 operator for a few years. She worked for the Housing Authority for a few years. She went to Dominguez on a scholarship for basketball. She played basketball there, and that's when she finished her career. And then she went on to be a CHP officer. She was a model extraordinary CHP officer. She started off programs there. She taught there. She did everything that they expected of her.
Well, from day one, I felt betrayed by California. I felt like they knew I was a survivor of domestic violence. There's plenty of evidence to suggest that. And instead of treating me like a victim of domestic violence, I got treated like a criminal. And I was harshly charged. I was harshly sentenced.
She was housed with a male inmate, which was abusing women while he was on the outside. And he was biological a male, and he had some violent and abusive towards females. She was housed there with him by CWF sergeants for knowing that he was a violent man. It was a joke that they put my sister in there with him to see how long she would last, even though they all knew she was a CHP officer and that she was a survivor of domestic violence.
They say that I'll be able to live a normal, healthy lifestyle. And my first regular general population cell is to be housed with a vicious and dangerous biological male inmate. And for me to find out from one of the sergeants later that that was done on purpose, as a bet, as a joke, to see how long a former police officer could last in that type of environment was like devastating to me.
So this really, the first few years of her being there and hearing these stories and her anxiety and panic attacks and things that she went through, being scared for her life, and she felt that the guards, didn't have her best safety at interest. It really tore our family apart, to hear these stories, knowing that when she went in there, she was a victim of domestic violence.
I feel like I can't trust anybody. No one cares about my interests. No one cares about my mental health. No one cares about my safety. So my whole quality of life is damaged. I have physical symptoms. I have emotional distress, panic, anxiety attacks. And I'm triggered by different things, and I have nightmares and insomnia, and I'm totally affected. I've never felt like this before. Even when I was living with my abusive husband, I've never felt like I feel today.
She still is up against the wall and still fighting for her safety, as currently they have nearly 10 to 15 more to 30 more men housed there. She's fighting against that, so she can continue to have her life, her safety, her health, and her mental well-being. She has a 14-year-old daughter that follows in her footsteps as far as education. She's a straight A student. She is currently playing basketball. She's in high school, her first year. It's kind of hard to raise a teenager. Not alone, my niece was 4 years old when she went inside. To raise a teenager by visitation, by phone calls and letters, and for them to still have that bond, that is extraordinary, to show that the love is unconditionally between my sister and her daughter and our family.
So when I found that Wolf was creating this space for us to talk and air our grievances and be vulnerable and join the part of a lawsuit that will help protect me and other women, this is the only group, it was like Kevin said, it was the only group of people who cared, who listened, who worked diligently to hear me out and carry out something tangible that can help me.
I just want to thank everyone, without me getting too emotional, for taking your time and everything out of your life to listen to my story and my sister's story and anyone that's speaking on her behalf.
Friend?
Yeah.
Hi. Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So I'm gonna introduce you to Katelyn, the our podcaster, and I'm sure she's gonna have a couple questions for you. So Tamekia's live.
Hi, Tamika. I know who you are as well. I've read your story. So thank you so much for joining me today as well.
Okay. Sure. You're welcome. Hi, hello.
Hi. How are you doing today?
Well, I had an interesting morning.
Friend, well, she's actually she's being pretty much stalked. Hey, friend, can you just start over, please? Sorry about that.
So the biological males, they have been harassing me for a while now. And so what's frustrated, it feels like they're communicating with each other to harass me in a way that discreet so that it doesn't look obvious because a lot of things are recorded here on ADSS, which is a camcorder system. And this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. It's a lot of the staff are now aware that I've been experiencing this harassment. Watching a little more to tell that they're paying more attention. So the plan is they recruit women to help them harass me. So there'll be different women coming around me, asking me silly questions, trying to engage me in some kind of way. People that I wouldn't normally interact with unless maybe I was at a group or something like that. But this is me just being outside on the yard working out or at my job. The women are setting me just walking around me in circles.
So you're saying that women are like intimidating you, even when you're trying to use the restroom, like trying to intimidate you, walking you around in circles around you? Is it because of your activism around this issue specifically? And are these actual women or?
Yes.
So there's some kind of TRA type women in the prisons too?
Some of them are biological male born inmates, and some of them are biological born female inmates.
Do you think part of the reason they support them is like that kind of they're aligning themselves with the alpha so that they themselves are like a selfish way of protecting themselves, or you think that they're like just kind of really that captured and brainwashed by this movement?
It's various reasons. Because some of them are in romantic relationships with them. I think that some of them are actually friends. Some of it is basic conditions to have a certain acceptance and tolerance of biological community health. So I think various reasons why the women coalesce around the biological male.
I just read that California was transferring additional 46, I believe, males to, has that started happening yet? No? Okay. I'm sorry if that gives you a sinking heart. I read it like I think I saw I posted it. Oh, you shared that. You saw it, Amie. The post I made.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Um, I'll send you the article, friend. I think like they pump the brakes on it somewhat as much as they legally can, but they can't. They're not supposed to. They're supposed to just be letting people in, and I think they've done things as discreetly as possible to prevent like a big flood or a big, exodus.
Right.
But there's not a whole
Right.
lot else they can do. I think that's why lockdowns lasted so long, to try and bide some time with this. We didn't see it then, but I can definitely see now why Chowchilla was the last prison to come off of lockdown. But I mean, that's going to be a lot. I mean, I don't even.
I definitely see them. I see them trying to stave off a massive amount or an influx of more biological male inmates. I do see them making efforts towards that.
So you're saying that the prison, the people working in the prison are trying to stave off and prevent some of these men from being transferred because they know that there's already assaults and those kind of things happening. How many, I mean, how many biological males are being housed right now? And are they, I know the answer to this, but just to clarify for people that don't, because I'm trying to wake people up to what's going on. These men are being housed in the same rooms, sleeping next to in beds next. They're not being housed separately, right? Even if they are rapists, and because that's one of the number one comments I get is that, oh, they're being housed in a different area if they're rapists. It's like, no, they're not.
No. Women's prison isn't separated by category or security level.
The man was an Aryan Brotherhood.
So the AB, the Aryan Brotherhood, is a white supremacist prison gang. So this person has been, you know, it's advertised. It's been a known fact for almost 2 years now, and that's
So there's a man like there's men from white supremacy gangs being
all kinds of gangs. PC, sex offender gangs.
Sex offender gangs? This is demonic.
So there's so many different factors that go into housing men in men's prison. So none of those factors exist in the women's prison because we don't have politics like that. We don't separate by race, gang, region, crime level, security level, but they do. So when they come from men's prison,
wow,
death row, they're thrown into our general population, which completely blended, because women don't have to be separated like serial killers from petty thieves.
Well, because women don't. I don't think there's a single, like, is there a single serial killer that was a female? There's like one who was a revenge one, right? She who was killing offenders.
She was bunkies with the serial killer. And
I know that I remember reading that they intentionally did it as a joke, right? To like the officers housed this man with Tamika because they knew her history and basically as to try and to bully her.
Like they were hazing you, right?
That's fucking disgusting.
Yeah. That was when I first got here, and I didn't know anything about prison. I was more vulnerable at that period of time than any other time. And they housed me with one of the very few biological males that they had in any of the women's institutions for the time.
So he was threatening to her, hostile to her.
Right, yeah. Because once the anger comes out, there's no misidentifying somebody as what they are when they're mad, because everybody goes back to like it's done being like a totally abusive
man.
Yeah, and it's happened, and I'm sad because we both tried to really forge friendships and do our best to be open-minded, because there was a point where I thought maybe I'm wrong and I just need to like try. And even in the friendships that I made, it turns extremely abusive. There
Really?
is a narcissism that is involved in this issue. There's a lot of undiagnosed issues, personality problems, attention-seeking behavior disorders. I don't know how a friendship could go so quickly from friendship to like the most abusive relationship I've had in years. And her being a plaintiff, it just puts a big target on her back.
It's so she shouldn't even be in there. Like it sounds like she killed a man like my dad. Like my mom, I mean, my dad put a gun in my mom's mouth at one point. Like the notion of someone like her being housed with a monster is just it's the level of PTSD I can't even imagine.
Right.
Like,
but luckily we have friends at the Complex PTSD Foundation who are pretty outstanding. I just got to tap into that resource, but they're all displaying like the symptoms of the complex PTSD are pretty apparent. It's a pretty undeniable. You can actually feel it like when you get in there. It's heavy, but friend, you want to finish what where were we?
She was discussing
Oh, the roommate. There's an area in the room. I was trying to paint a picture of exactly where the area is. There's an area there's 2 bunks here, and it's separated by a row of 4 lockers. And if you pull the lockers forward a little bit, there's a space between the locker and the window. So he would shove her between that space between the locker and the window, and then beat her up in that space. So.
And you said he was kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde, like he would speak in a woman's voice, and then as soon as someone was out of the room or away, it was just them, he would revert to that violent male.
So this call's gonna run out in shortly. I'll
60 seconds remaining.
So friend, you want to just hang up and call right back?
Yes, I'll call right back.
Okay, bye. Love you, bye. Okay, sorry, I don't know what is wrong with my whole house.
No, sometimes I think that stuff happens because the demons know we're coming for them. Honestly.
I agree with you 100%. And
yeah,
the warfare aspect of this whole thing is something that's very hard to explain to people. It's very hard. And this is a prime ground zero place for serious spiritual warfare to kick off. And these are people who are not okay, they're not well, and they're being given free range to just terrorize people, and it is definitely satanic. It's so dark. And I mean, one of the people, like specifically the one who hates both she and I, is a self-proclaimed Satanist. Where were we?
We were discussing the man she was housed with when she first got it was like she was 5 months in, I think, and they housed her with this violent monster.
And I think you were at the point where you're describing just how the light switch goes on and off when there was, just one of those fits of rage, and it's back on man mode.
Right. So it got to a point where now that I look back, I see the pattern of like regular abusers. Like,
I'm sorry, can you reiterate what she said for a little bit? So he's following her into the shower?
Well, there's a shower and a toilet in the cells. So
okay.
This person, the honeymoon phase was over with the initial introductory period. There was no trigger required. They were just always pissed off, always mad. So now Tamika is using the bathroom, and you're gonna be standing outside of the door. She's in the shower, you're gonna be standing outside the shower door. You're gonna stand in the middle of the room talking about her and not letting her get past or maneuver through the room, just to it's this constant antagonizing without putting your hands on somebody. But it does get to that point eventually in most situations. Did it get that bad?
Well, she said he beat her up, right? In the
her bunkie. His girlfriend, my bunkie. He never touched me. We brushed past each other one time because I was trying to get to my area and he was standing in the way. And, he called me out for even touching him. Of
course.
He's like, you touch me again, I will get aggressive.
It's like hyper aggressive.
It's very strategic,
It's all strategic. All these moves are very strategic.
It's slow, it's methodical.
Sounds like narcissistic abuse playbook. Like he's an abuser.
Imagine that's where they're coming from, where that is the common thread amongst the whole population. They have to play by this game, the rules of this game. It's psychological abusive checks that doesn't and this isn't what they're used to. This is not the environment that they've ever lived. Sorry, friend. So they're infecting the female population with their abusive male prison politics, which is exactly what I said was going to happen.
Yeah, and you make such a good point that I mean, women commit different crimes, so that it makes sense women's prisons aren't designed or set up to handle these types of criminals coming in, because women don't commit these types of crimes. I mean, 99% of sex crimes are committed by men.
There and
Violent, it's like 85% of violent crimes are committed by men.
And I think that the structurally, it was designed different. It was designed specifically for women. There's trees, and they don't have trees in the men's joint because they jump on them and fashion weapons out of them. So, the whole makeup of the entire institution doesn't look the same. So, obviously, that's a clear indication that these are different. Things are different. It's okay that things are different. They don't go together.
By the way, they're cutting down more bushes and trees here.
Get out of here. Which ones? They're cutting down the
They're
trees.
Oh, so they're
cutting down more bushes and trees here regularly.
On your yard?
Yeah, they just cut down. You see the rose bushes that made everything was beautiful.
Oh, that's
Near
disgusting.
near
There's women that have been tending those roses for decades, you know,
they're cutting down gardens and plants, and
all of them. Mm.
so they're just taking away the joy of the only like the small joys the women have in their to
To appease,
to,
to make
to make it to
Yeah.
appease and to make it so that these men can't. This is just I don't understand. I mean, it just it's so obvious that these are not women that are I know that it makes me so angry. This is just so evil because it's so clearly like on its face incorrect, objectively wrong, objectively doesn't make any kind of sense. These are not women, they're men.
Well, right, because there was just a big mass transfer of cross-dressing bisexuals. That's what that is. And a cross-dressing bisexual is not right, because this is not this is not anything that is causing them to have a heightened rate of risk of sexual assault in the men's prison. That's not one of the marginalized marker people that they said were being subjected to these horrible conditions that don't exist. That's a sexual preference. That's a fetish. That's not something that normally is used to make someone a protected class.
Being bisexual or cross-dressing?
Being both.
Well, the thing is, it's even if it was, it's not women's job to fix.
Right.
Like,
right.
you know, yes, men, there are
Yes.
populations of men that are more vulnerable in men's prison. So
Address it
find
there.
a third space for them. It's not a woman's job to fix this shit.
But they have successfully turned the women's prison into an extension of the protected custody yard.
They have an extra set of ears
Oh,
behind the building.
okay, fine.
Listen to me the first time.
Sure.
I just saw her. I didn't see her.
What's wrong?
Somebody was eavesdropping on her. I'm so sorry.
One of the oh goodness.
This is the whole time I did not see her. She's one of the white supremacists that I told you about earlier. She's just brilliant. One of the women that came out and was circling around me that one day I was working on the daily. So she's out here and she tucked herself behind these bushes where I couldn't see her.
She said one of the white supremacists right now is
The white supremacist roommates, who was a woman, came out to
They have 60 seconds remaining.
to spy on. Because they've all been given assignments.
during this call. Oh God, there's no real authority that she can report this kind of stuff to, right? Because they're all siding with the men who claim to be women.
Friend, wait, let me ask you really quick. Are you good? Like, you have to go back to work. You're gonna go back to work, right?
No, I'm going inside the unit from here.
Okay. That's just ridiculous. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to go to college and get a law degree. Okay. It's okay. It's okay because there's so much content here that you can copy, paste, and chop up. So this is what happened. These the guy who when this all started was on the phone. He was heard in the day room saying, "Tell all the brothers to get down here. Tell the whole Aryan Brotherhood to get down here. Come on
While she's
over."
on the phone.
While there's like a phone bank.
Mhm.
Before they got their tablets, they would use those phone banks. And this person was saying that loud enough to where the day room heard them saying this. So they don't have prison gangs in the women's prison. And the prison gangs in the men's prison are separated by region, race, um, everything, security level. So these are risk factors being introduced into the population that never existed before, ever. Even when I was there and they brought the serial rapist who mutilated himself so that he could manipulate his way into the women's facility, pulled that race card and was trying to start like prison segregation status stuff. And women don't go for that, you know. I think at the end of the day, even as separated or as bullyish as it gets in there, at the end of the day, women know inherently that it's us against the world. The whole system is designed to not to help or heal or protect, but to just destroy women. So that person actually was stabbed and beat up and sent to the lower security women's prison down south in Southern California, where they're currently housed in the honor dorm with their girlfriend, not on any hormones or even trying to live as a woman. But ironically, this person hates the law that is allowing for everyone else to transfer from the men's prison. They're very much against it, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's the kind of drama that they're bringing with them. This one still has a quarter
Oh,
quarter
a
unit.
penis.
Yeah, it's yes, right.
Well, yeah, they want their own, because like the men want to transfer to be around the women, not other men.
Right, right.
Too.
Because the trans women that I'm in touch with in the men's prison are perfectly fine and do not want to transfer and are fine in their living situations and in their programs and don't have no intention and do not have any desire whatsoever to transfer to the women's facility.
So you're in touch with some trans identified men that are in men's prison that are okay.
Oh yeah, that have said this is an urban legend. There is not a risk factor. I am not going to get raped today or tomorrow or the next day.
Are they housed in a special safe section? No. So they're in general population and they're fine?
Yes. Yes.
That actually kind of surprises me because I always hear there's so much rape in men's prison anyway.
They're treated they're treated with respect. It's not like there's no carnage. People aren't just ripping them to shreds and passing them around. The trans women I've talked to are comfortable where they're at. They don't want to move because they know that programming and the opportunities are more readily available at the facilities they're at.
Okay.
People are going home being found suitable from those facilities. There's great communication with the staff, with the wardens, with the outside organizations. It all sounds so nice. I almost wanted to tell, it was to the point where I wanted to tell women to start transferring over there because it sounds so much better. But that's not what we want to do. But
so do you think that it's just because there's more funding for men's prisons because there's more need for it? Or do you think it's just because women are straight up forgotten and society just cares more about men?
Yes, that's it. And
The latter one, okay.
the women don't advocate for themselves the same way that men do, because they don't have that deep
Voice.
understanding of the rights that you have over your body, yourself, your human rights. Even I struggle with that sometimes, because like in the in Kelly J. King's documentary, we touched on it with my friend who called in about getting strip searched in county jail. We were strip searched outside, outdoors, in daylight, in front of people, 50, 60 women at a time, in front of men. It's really hard to understand that you have rights or you matter when they do that to you several times a day. And there's women with, blood running down their legs. They would make you take your tampons out and walk to the center of this cage and throw it away, and then walk back to your place in line. And then they want you to fish hook yourself to show your teeth, and like animals. And when there was a huge lawsuit for that.
And
was
this
like,
is done regularly, like not even just when you're first incarcerated, like they do this multiple times a day?
every time you go out to court. This was there was a huge lawsuit with several thousand plaintiffs, none of which got any of the multi-million-dollar settlement. But like on any given day, if you were to go out to court, you could.
What's court? Outside?
No, going to court like in county jail. This is in LA County Jail. So
Okay.
people fighting their cases. So if you go out to court, they have to strip you out when you leave the unit, when you get to the court line, when you get to the courthouse, they want to strip you out, and then 2-3 more times when you come back. And they were just telling us to do it anywhere. So once you've been through that enough times, it's very difficult to understand that you can say no. So you're put in the situation and you're further conditioned to devalue your, because that's all you experience. That's all you see. So the governor hates me. Okay. So the senators hate me. Okay. So the assembly members and the Congress people hate me too. Okay. So it's really hard to convince people that they've got to stick up for themselves. That's why we're working so hard to get women encouraged and built up and comfortable in their own skin again enough to start filing complaints. Because as of right now, she may be the only one who's filed any complaints, because there's this fear and lack of self-worth, I think, to even move forward with complaints that really need to be filed.
Well, and you think about the history. I mean, a super majority of these women have been raped or experienced domestic abuse or child sexual abuse. Like, I experienced a bit of that in my own life, and it took me decades to find my self-worth, and I didn't go through prison system. And come on, it's just like,
90,
and I mean, sorry, go ahead.
90%
Yeah.
of women are survivors. So just to put one rapist in there, one abusive person that is completely reminiscent of your original abuse situation is going to just cause like mass hive mind.
Even if they're not, it's just a male body. Like, you don't, that's the thing. It's like, people need to understand that it's not even, they don't even have to be a rapist. They can just have the same physique, a tiny little bit of sound, maybe the smell of something, like anything can set you off. And it's like and what keeps coming to my head listening to both of you is just the expectations we have on women versus the expectations we have on men. We expect very little from men, that we put so much on women to fix it. Like, and forcing women to give up the rose garden and the trees made me so sad. There's such huge joy, I would imagine, in like gardening is, you're just taking away the one happy moment they have in a day.
There's old ladies, there's grandmas in there who are the gardeners. So this is not okay. The one of the before I left, I was on the same yard that she's on now, and it was the pretty yard. It was like the garden island of the yards, and there were palm trees, and there was, I think, a jacaranda, and there were a lot of roses, and the grass was always greener on that yard. And for almost 2 weeks before I paroled, I would stand there and just stare, so I could remember.
Yeah.
It's very they're taking away even the most basic um little perks that um made people feel human, so that they can be safer from the people who've chosen to self-ID as women. It's just,
Which it sounds like even the majority of those self-IDing don't even have dysphoria of any kind. If you're saying the trans identified men you're speaking to that are staying in men's prison, though, it sounds like that they're the ones that might actually have gender dysphoria, and the ones that are transferring are just
well, they've
men that.
stated that we're here, Amie, the ones who are transferring are predators. Those are not like they're not coming from our camp. Um, and they know each other. This is a fairly small community. Even though there's like 100,000 of us, word gets around quick. So they know who's coming. They know who is coming in. I mean, somebody just sent me profiles for 3 people who I just put in for a transfer, and one is another 6'7" person who's
Oh
really
God.
only like 34 years old, but has 3 convictions for aggravated rape and a prison prior, and the original conviction was for aggravated rape. So this is 4 aggravated rapes by a young person that is 6'7", and by default they will get transferred because they can't tell them no for anything. There is no reason that exists that they can use that isn't deemed discriminatory. So biology, your physique, so the of your penis, your criminal history, your sexual orientation, none of those things can be factored into a no.
Is there
Even if
anything that can be factored into a no? Literally
no,
nothing.
no, they've expressed that, they finally explained that there is no. By default, they will all be transferred, because even if someone is brave enough to say no on the review board, there's they can grieve the no. They have a 30-day period to grieve it. It will go before another review board, who will then grant the transfer. So the law was designed with hate. This is a very anti-woman, hatefully crafted bill, because there are no guardrails. All these safety precautions and elbow room that Senator Weiner said was in place, that the Department of Corrections could use to prevent potentially dangerous situations that he said don't really exist, only to right-wing TERFs.
Oh,
He said there's
oh.
room to maneuver around those potentially dangerous situations that don't ever really happen. Just like the other things, those are unsubstantiated through all the record keeping, their statistics, their documentaries. It all show it. They're all clearly state, oh, I didn't report it. Oh yes, this horrible thing happened to me, but I didn't report it. So why are we taking it seriously? Because the horrible things that happen to the women that they don't report, nobody cares about. Nobody gives them any action. But if one of them says, oh, somebody misgendered me, this is just horrible, I don't know what to do, then that's taken so seriously, like it's gospel.
Well, that's what I mean. This is they are trying to introduce a new religion, which basically is demonizing women and coming after women and children. I mean, this is what that new religion is. It's
it's being pushed as that inside really bad, and I'm very, very disappointed with I'm very disappointed all around. Someone was telling a friend of mine over the weekend that they never imagined that they would ever be a Christian, baptized Christian woman doing their time in a women's prison, because they were just baptized the previous weekend, and they were so excited to share this information. And I mean, what somebody has to hold the line. Somebody has to have a foot that's going to go down and say enough is enough.
Wait, I'm confused. What do you mean about Christian? Like,
There's a transfer from the men's prison who was recently baptized, and so excited to tell everybody that they were you know, now a Christian woman doing their time.
oh,
And I don't think there's anything wrong with telling somebody, no, you're not.
I
You're
find it very bizarre to see any Christians defending this movement. I mean, I'm a Christian woman, and I'm pretty sure my God didn't make me, it didn't separate me from my body, didn't, it's like, it's very confusing to me, like how people, I can't find the logical through line there. Like, you think that God really put people on earth in the wrong body?
no,
Like,
they're cowards. They're all cowards, and I don't think
yeah,
there's anything wrong with loving people where they're at and saying,
yeah,
you know, we're friends, I care about you deeply, but I'm not going to affirm this lie that you're living. There's nothing wrong with you. There wasn't anything wrong with you before. And you're fine. You're fine.
yeah,
I'm not gonna, you're not gonna have babies. You're not gonna be somebody's beautiful wife one day. You're a dude. You're a dude, and
mhm,
you're a really cute dude. You got a little waist. You know, we can we can have plenty of fun, but you're not a girl. You're not a
yeah,
female. Um, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that out of love, because I'm not coming from a place of hate at all. Um, if anything, the Lord's put on my heart very, very heavily that this has to be done from a place of love, because these are the people that, you know, we're responsible for loving, because they're very difficult to love. And I don't think I'm gonna get a whole lot accomplished by just going around and loving the people that it's easy or pleasant, or who I personally select. So when I did see one of the people that hates my guts, I surprisingly, I wasn't angry like I was a year ago. I was sad. I felt like a sissy because I was so sad, because this person is so lost and broken, but it's still not the women's responsibility to take care of that
no,
at all. But being able to see that first, instead of um, what I was seeing,
anger,
yes, through seeing through the anger, it did change a lot. I was so frustrated. Like, are you serious? I really, I have to feel this way. I was so frustrated, but this is something that a lot of women told me in the very beginning, that you're not going to win being angry. You have to let go, because this isn't how we're going to win this one. And I was like, I wish that you guys would shut up and stop telling me that, because I'm really mad. But it took almost 2 years, and it's abated, and I understand what they meant now. Um, it's so frustrating because I would just be so pissed off.
no, I get it. I mean, wrath is my number one deadly sin, hands down. It's number one for me. It's something I've always had to work on, something I'll continue to work on, because I have a really bad temper when I'm pushed to the breaking point. But I've reached a similar place with you where it just gets exhausting, because you're just drinking poison, hoping to make someone else sick.
Yep.
You know, and there comes a point with that wrath and that anger just becomes too exhausting to hold. At least that's what it is for me. It's just I got tired. I
And
don't
I
have
think
it in me.
yeah, it started to really take a toll on me. And I just I wasn't feeling good, and I had to really stop and think about, like, reevaluate my whole stance. I'm not gonna, like, I still have the same goals, but not, but it's not motivated by the same feelings. Um, and I know that at some point at some point I know I'm gonna have, like, deeper interactions with some of these people. And I hope it hurries up so that we can move forward, because we have to do it together, and I have to be considerate of them at the same time, as little sense as that makes. I'm not going to prioritize their needs because they have enough advocates, but I don't want them to go to a worse place. I want everybody to be in a better place. But I have to balance that with the fact that these are very calculated, violent, dangerous people by nature.
Yeah.
So I'm like a juggler. Like,
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. Like, hurt people. Like, no, everyone's like anyone that landed themselves in that horrifying place of becoming that violent, or that that much darkness inside of them is damaged. You know, and it's we need to balance recognizing that hurt people and those people are damaged, but then also recognize that they are dangerous and belong nowhere near women, and it needs to be reckoned with in where they are in their life, you know. And we need to try to find a way to put women first. It's just the solution, it seems like, is it seems like it has to be a federal one to attack this amount, this many states it's going on in.
I think there needs to be a reevaluation of the Prison Rape Elimination Act. There needs to be some really firm lines. There can't be this new wave, nuanced gray stuff. There have to be definitive definitions and explanations of what is what and who goes where. It can't be you cannot make laws based on how somebody feels.
No, there's no, laws are supposed to be objective and clear. There's no way to legislate someone's feelings that apparently change on a whim anyway. Like, it's like some of these bizarre TikTok videos I see.
And it has to be respected. No, I can't. I don't have to. Nobody's respecting. I know that's not how I want to say.
No, I mean, the thing is, you can respect someone without having to believe their lies or their delusion. Like, we aren't obligated to, like, I have respect for every human life. I have respect for life. I have respect, but it does not mean that they get to dictate my thoughts or what I feel like or what I say. You know, like, I'm not going to be compelled to lie to somebody.
Or you know.
And the respect is not a two-way street in that situation too. It's like, you have no respect for me if you're telling me that I have to kowtow to whatever your delusion is, or somehow I'm, you know, a leper or a bad person or guilty of hate speech or whatever.
Oh gosh, I'm guilty of genocide by word. That's a good one, right?
Well, it makes it so evident that these people have never been oppressed a day in their life. If I mean, I've gotten called a man, all sorts of names, but I mean, it's like, oh, I have short hair in some photographs and I'm tall and I have broad shoulders. So like, I've gotten called a man. I don't go home and cry about it. I know I'm not a man. So I just say, okay, whatever, and move on. Like, this words are violence, like misgendering is like, if your self-worth is so contingent on some stranger calling you some pronoun that you aren't, you need to reckon with yourself. That's not on me.
They should call 911 and go to the hospital, because I cannot do this. Nobody has time for this. You're so busy. And I when I first came on the scene and started to dabble in this, I was in a cohort with several different organizations, because I thought it would be good to make sure I'm not wrong and be open-minded. And I had no idea what developing curriculum for gender-based violence was. I thought that meant we were going to help create curriculum for organizations to use when they're dealing with traumatized women. But no, it's turning domestic violence into a free for all, you know, probably just to expand on funding. And they kept asking me, you know, we're going to Zoom today. What's your pronouns? And I said, how about my first name? That works for me. It has for the last 40 years. Just put that.
Yeah.
But what do you want people to refer to you as? I said, my name. And this was completely, this was interpreted as something hostile. I said, I don't give a two craps what people use when I'm not in the room. You know, you could call me Elephant Man, whatever. But when we're talking, just call me by my name. Then I didn't realize the significance of resisting giving into the pronoun game. And it's like a freaking cult. It's a problem.
And this is when you were trying to help get involved when you were already out, like to help with the violence in prison and to help protect the women.
This was over 2 years ago, and yeah, this is what I thought was going to be an awesome project to help, you know, incarcerated women. It was the framework for the new language, gender-based violence issue language. And as soon as I figured it out, finally, I didn't renew
So that you didn't renew your what?
I didn't renew my contract. One of my partners and I, neither one of us did, and we approached them together to let them know, you know, thank you so much for this awesome year that you shared with us. We appreciate you. We're going to move on. And they didn't like that either. These were some of the most pleasant people I thought working with them on this project for a year. And the project manager said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, we're going to start an organization for women. And she said, oh, like trans women and women. And I said, no, just women. And she said, I don't even think that's legal. I said, well, I think you should know by now I'm not really concerned about whether something is legal or not. And then she said, well, you're putting your life in danger. The stance that you're choosing to take is putting your life in danger. And I said, well, if I, think about this too long, I might think that you're threatening me. And so I'm not going to think about it very much. But this was somebody who's very pleasant, personable, and I thought we were cool. But as soon as I decided to not go with the indoctrination flow, it was a huge problem. And it's bizarre.
So I really think it's cognitive dissonance, and people, because I get so much hate still. I do understand. I think it's people, they know that we're right. They also know that they don't have the spine to stand where we do. And so it becomes much easier to attack us than to acknowledge their weakness within themselves. And it's like, oh, someone's pleasant, then that, people that prefer, it sounds like someone that prefers to be liked. Yes. Right? Not be good. Not be a good person. Like it's much, I say this all the time. I'd rather die looking myself in the mirror and standing up tall, being able to look myself in the mirror than anything else. Like you're not going to rob me spiritually.
No. And that's next on the agenda. I mean, I have a friend, whose attorney was telling her to, apologize, make a public letter of apology for her transphobia that is stemming from her strict religious upbringing and belief system. I don't see them telling anybody else of any other religion to denounce their faith and apologize for something they are not guilty of.
And plus I'm not transphobic. I'm not afraid or have any kind of, I just don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. Like, and that's allowed. It's my constitutional right to not, there's separation of church and state. And that's the thing, is like, they're like literally legislating a religion into law in this country, which is it's a complete violation of our values. It's like the fabric of this nation is separation of church and state.
And California is just the epicenter of all of this, because
California is Sodom and Gomorrah.
It is, and I know that it seems too far gone, but I have high hopes of just completely flipping the state, because I feel like it's the only way to save the nation. Honestly, every other state follows the lead of California legislative wise, and California has to do a complete turnaround and do the opposite of what we've been doing for the last couple decades in order to lead the nation in the right direction, or else we're super doomed. So maybe if I don't know, it's a really big goal, but it has to happen. I mean, otherwise I don't know what we can do. Like, I'll just do that in spare time, probably like on the weekends they can accomplish that. But it has to happen. All of our elected officials gotta go. All of our soft conservatives gotta go. It has to be people that are grassroots coming with moderate conservative and Christian values. It has to be reined all the way back in, because it's gone so far from where we started. I mean, the sisters of petulant indulgence or whatever are going to be at the state capitol on
what is that like? And Joe Biden's supposed to be a Catholic. Like, I was raised Catholic. I consider myself a Christian witch. Like, I'm not dogmatically Christian, but I believe in the Christ consciousness, and I try to walk in the Christ consciousness in life. And I mean, Biden has turned his back on the Christ consciousness.
Yes, very, very firmly and very, very clearly. I don't know. I would love to know what the plan of action is for that day. I just feel like this is a hostile attack on the fabric of our country, because this is an enemy of the state, because they're trying to destroy us. And I don't know why nobody else is saying that.
Well, I think I really think I think about this all the time because it drives me insane. Because I also marched with Black Lives Matter. Like, I care a lot about racial justice. And I was really, when that was starting and I saw so many people speaking out, I was like, oh, this is great, and then all of a sudden they don't think that they were posting that because it was easy and because they wanted to be liked and whatever, because now, I've proven, and you have too, that the people experiencing the brunt of this are women of color that are taking the brunt of the abuse. And so no one
knows that the trans agenda and the BLM are both funded by the same purse. This is the same movement.
Yeah, I know. That organization is, and I kind of sensed that on the march. One of the rallies I went to, but I wasn't at that point. I was still trying to align, like I was trying to believe in it, because I think that a lot of people with Christian values wanted to give it a chance because they don't want other people to be oppressed or hurt. And then you realize what's actually happening and you're like, oh yeah, this is bad. But I didn't realize what an organization Black Lives Matter was. I thought it was more of an organic statement. I didn't, it took me time to really, and I think that's a lot of that's, I credit Twitter, because I used to only read the New York Times and read the Washington Post. And I had a Twitter account since 2009, but I didn't really use it. And then I started digging in because I was, because of the first day of Biden's presidency. It's like, what the fuck just happened? Like, I read that and so I went and I started scouring Twitter because I didn't know what else to do. And I started understanding the truth of everything that was going on, because I'm kind of rambling, but
I stayed at Twitter. Pretty much woke me up on a lot of issues too. And I never touched Twitter because I didn't want to go on Twitter with Donald Trump, because I thought that he was just a total jackass. And then somebody told me, why don't you turn the audio off and read what he's saying, and maybe that will help things make sense, because your emotions are controlling your brain right now, and you need to think with your brain. And
that's actually one of my biggest rules, is I read the news instead of watching it, for that very reason. It's because I can, it's the easiest, it's the clearest path to not being manipulated. It might be more boring, but you have the discernment that way as best as you can, and the critical thinking versus watching the news or something, because it's manipulation.
Yes.
It's preying on your emotions and your fear.
All of it.
Yeah.
And then I started to realize how the media was manipulating absolutely everything on both sides. I was like, oh no, this is so much. This is so much.
Yeah.
But then, and then you got to think about the ladies. All they have is local mainstream media. So it's even more dumbed down, and
Yeah.
really don't know what's going on. So I try and send as many current events in as possible, and examples, and like during COVID when they were just vaccinating the hell out of all of them. I was like, just hold on, you guys. Like, I just wait. They're testing on you like they always do. They are testing on you. I'm guessing they probably weren't even, you know, vaccinating them. I wouldn't put anything past them, because they've never stopped medically testing people in this country.
Oh God, that makes me um well, I always like to end things because I need to wrap up soon. But I always like to end conversations like this with what you'd want to tell people, or to say to people, to encourage them that now's the time to start speaking out.
Well, this is the same thing I usually say. Every time you think you're going to have a conversation that's really uncomfortable, and you're hesitant, and you start and you stop, and you start and you stop, and you're feeling anxiety and you don't want to do it, just have it, because nothing that we're experiencing on this side is even remotely close to the uncomfortable conversations that the women are having to have inside, while they're in the shower, while they're on the toilet, while they're getting dressed for work, while they're cleaning the blood off of the floor from being beaten, from watching their neighbors get breast implants and keep their penis while they're denied breast reductions. Nothing is as uncomfortable as that. So I really encourage everybody to just talk. This is the only way we're going to be able to get this out, is by having intimate conversations, doing this one person at a time.
Yeah.
It has to be organic. It has to be something that people hear from the heart, and they can identify with it on some level. It has to be like that. And the more conversations we have, the faster this will end.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you so much for all the work you're doing. I'll share more information about it too. If you have any links to send me, I'll have it in the bio.